Our first storyteller tonight, Greg Pennypacker.
You're tall.
I think this field might actually be small for me.
It's not.
Take it off. Does that work if I do that? Everybody hear me okay?
That's better.
Okay, actually, sorry, Heather, before I start, it's reagent. That's how you say it.
Reagent.
So, reagent, yeah. So anyways, how's everybody doing tonight? I was planning on going last because I had a couple stories. I wasn't sure what I was going to tell, and I figured I'd hear what everybody else did, but then Heather said, you want to go first? So I'm going first. So here we are. So I'm just going to pick one and go with it.
Tell as many as you like.
Oh, well, I'll be here all night if you let me do that. So, all right, so the story that I picked to tell is took place 3 years ago. As Heather said, I'm an avid traveler. I love seeing new things, experiencing new things, and stepping outside of my comfort zone. So after graduation from the University of Akron, I took 6 weeks by myself and backpacked around Europe. I took the train around, I flew into Spain, went into Italy, Austria, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. And spent a couple days in whichever city I felt like. It didn't have a set plan in terms of how many days I was going to spend where. I knew vaguely I wanted to go to Rome, go to Florence, here or there. But it was kind of just seat of my pants, and whatever. If I found a city I loved and I wanted to stay a couple more days, I would. If I was bored with the city and wanted to leave, then I would. So the only thing that I did have set in stone was that I was going to do the running of the bulls. So because it's a huge festival, books up the entire city, I booked a hotel room way in advance. Made sure that I was in Pamplona when I needed to be. Got there, it took me forever to find my hotel. I got extremely lost, which was the case with most of my first several cities I was in, but I figured it out pretty quick. And the hotel I was staying in only had Wi-Fi in the lobby, not in rooms or anything. So as you can imagine, the lobby was kind of a hot spot. Everybody was hanging out in the lobby, and by hanging out I mean staring at their phones, not looking at each other, interacting really in any way, shape, or form. So one night where a bunch of us are in the lobby, it's the night before they're going to have the first running. It's a week-long festival for anybody that doesn't know. And we're hanging out, and I'm talking to a couple of different guys who are from different places. And that was probably my favorite part of traveling, is everywhere you go, you meet people from around the world. You're always asking, where have you been? What have you seen? What's good? What sucks? You know, what can I miss? All that kind of stuff. And one guy was originally from Texas, but he lived in Poland now. And he worked in Belgium, he worked in Belgium. And he was doing the running the next day, same as me. So we kind of struck up a conversation. A bunch of us are talking about it, getting excited, whatever. So the next day, we go do the whole running of the bulls. It was absolutely fantastic. Everything that I hoped it would be. Biggest adrenaline rush I have ever had by far. And afterwards, I'm kind of walking back to my hotel because I feel kind of drained after you have an adrenaline rush like that. And I wanted to sit down for a little bit and kind of process before I did anything else. And as I'm walking, I see this guy who I'd met in the lobby the night before. And we start talking because he had done it too. You know, wasn't that amazing? And he's talking about what he did and what I did. And he's doing the same thing, just going to chill because the festival really kicks off at night. And he said, you know, I'm here traveling alone, you are too, why don't we hang out tonight? Let's check out the festival. And I said, sounds great, because, you know, things are always better with company, someone to share it with, right? So we kind of set a time that we'll meet in the lobby. Everything's good. I went, took a nap, hung out, come back to meet this guy in the lobby. So we go out and we experience the festival, and it's great. There's people playing drums everywhere, dancing. I have a video of a woman who had to be in her 80s, 90s, I don't even know, just sitting there, just shaking her hips. I mean, everybody's having a blast, and it was fantastic. And we went to a place, they sold big bottles of sangria, and we each got sangria, and are just kind of walking through the city, sipping wine and enjoying this festival, and just kind of life, everyone just enjoying themselves. And at the end of the night, they have a fireworks display. And so there's a big, big lawn, everybody kind of camps out and picks a spot and watches this fireworks display. So we're sitting there, and as we're sitting there, two young ladies come over to join us. So we start having a conversation. It turns out that they're from Pamplona. They've grown up in the city. So we're talking about, you know, what's the perspective of someone who lives here? I said, you know, do you hate the festival because there's all these foreigners coming in and trashing your city? Or do you love it, you know, because there's all these new people? And they said, actually, we love it. We love having all these people come in who are from different places, do different things, and we love meeting strangers and striking up a conversation, which is what they were doing. So we sit on the lawn and we have a long conversation, and we watch the fireworks. And actually, the one girl didn't speak English very well, but she spoke German, and I speak German pretty well. So it was kind of ironic that I'm sitting with a Spanish girl in Spain speaking German. It was just kind of cool. I like that. But after the fireworks are done, we're still talking, and I asked them, I said, have you ever done the running of the bulls? You know, you live here. Have you ever done it yourselves? And they said, oh, no. And this one girl seemed terrified, like horrified that I would even ask. And I said, well, why not? You live here. Why wouldn't you try it? She's like, well, it's dangerous. You could die. I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess there is that detail. You could die. And this guy from Belgium looks at me and he goes, you know, it's actually really scary how easy it is to die. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, you know, you never know what's going to hit you. It could happen any time. He goes, no, like, it's really easy to kill someone. I was like, okay. And at this point, we've had some sangria, so I don't know if he's kidding, if this bad sarcasm, like what, I don't know what's happening here. And he goes, like, especially in a really dark alley in Belgium. And I'm still waiting for like the next thing to drop. Like, where's the punchline in this whole thing? He goes, I'm just gonna stop talking, but basically, don't piss me off in Belgium. And I'm just standing here and I'm looking at these girls, like, please tell me that, you know, to see what they're thinking. Is he joking? And you could tell they didn't really grasp that this guy has just told us he's killed somebody in Belgium. And so we're sitting there and I'm just like, do I react to this? Or do I just sit here, you know, because what do you do when someone just confesses to murder right next to you? And so I just kind of, oh yeah, shrugged it off, and you know, it was pretty close to the end of the night anyway, so the girls leave, and it's this guy and I again, and the city pretty much goes all night for this festival. So he goes, oh, you know, let's go downtown, let's hang out some more, let's see some more things. And 10 minutes ago I would have been like, yeah, let's go explore the city, but now I know I've been hanging out with a murderer for the past 2 days. So I very quickly became tired and needed to go home and rest because I was not hanging out with this guy anymore. And I actually had planned to stay another day or two in Pamplona. I had my hotel booked, and I got the hell out of there. The next day, because he's like, oh, we need to do this again, let's hang out, you know, I'll meet you in the lobby tomorrow and we can do a whole day thing. I'm like, I don't need to get on this guy's wrong side. So the next day I canceled my reservation at the hotel, got a train ticket to Barcelona, and I was out of there. But yeah, so that was my story of how I met a murderer and hung out with him for a couple days unbeknownst to me while I was in Pamplona. Before I start the second one, I do want to put a disclaimer on that first story. Traveling is great. Don't be terrified you're going to run into a murderer if you go anywhere, because I'm always trying to encourage people to go, and I never want to tell that story because I'm afraid people are going to hear it and be like, I'm not going anywhere now because you just run into a murderer. Second story, I'm going to change pace a little bit. So, talking about 2010, I was 20 years old and had an experience I think at the time I didn't realize was that profound, but since I've kind of come to realize that it's shown me that even the worst situations, as cliche as it sounds, can produce some of the most amazing things if you give them time to mature. So, growing up, I was not very close with any of my grandparents. My mom's mother and I were very close, but she passed away when I was 9. So I had still my dad's parents. My mom's father was never in the picture. So I kind of had adoptive grandparents as I went. You know, we had a really good friend that they would come to grandparents' day for me at school, or you know, whatever might be the case. But the people that I really kind of looked to as the grandma, grandpa role models were my great aunt and my great uncle. And they both lived in New Jersey, so we didn't see them all that often. But they're the best people that you could ever meet. They're so full of love. They're the kind of people that you meet and within 5 minutes you feel like your family, you've known them forever, and they'll just welcome you. And in 2010, my great uncle, my Uncle Bob, was diagnosed with cancer. And he ended up, after he fought it for a long time, but he ended up succumbing to cancer and he passed away. So my family naturally is devastated because this is, the patriarch of our family, the leader of our family, and now he's gone and is just lion of a man. So the whole family from all corners of the country is going to New Jersey for this funeral. And, it's one of those things where it's hard to tell how you're supposed to feel because you're in a room with all of your family who literally, some of these cousins I haven't seen since we were this big, so we are almost meeting each other for the first time, even though we kind of know who each other are. So that was wonderful, but you also realize you're there for this reason that is extremely somber and difficult to process. So we go through this entire weekend, and actually it was one of my fondest memories. As terrible, again, as terrible as that sounds, it was a great time because all these cousins and people I'm spending time with. And one of the people who I ended up meeting there, I call my Uncle Vinny, and he actually, biologically, he was my grandmother's cousin's husband, if you can figure that whole thing out. So he's not related by blood, but he was enough part of the family. He was my Uncle Bob's best friend growing up. So he's there, and as we're kind of standing around and I'm comforting my aunt and we're, doing the typical funeral thing, I see him standing over in the corner with a book, and he's talking to my cousin Derek. And they're flipping through, and I see old pictures, and I'm a sucker for old pictures and history. So I didn't run away, but as we're kind of done, I kind of make my way over and try to see what they're talking about, and it turns out that he is the genealogy wizard of the family that I've never heard of before. And he has this book with pictures and information and everything about ancestors and pictures of my great-great-great-grandparents whose names I didn't even know, let alone know there was a picture that existed of them. And we ended up talking for probably a good 2-3 hours, and I was just hooked. So ever since 2010, I've been researching my family history and doing my genealogy just whenever I have time, and have found some amazing things. My mom's mother was born and raised in Germany during the Second World War. Her parents were divorced, so her mother brought her here. Her father stayed in Germany. We always assumed they didn't have a great relationship, so we always assumed he had passed away, maybe in the war, maybe after. Through doing my family tree, I actually learned that he got remarried and had a son. And when I did my backpacking trip, I met my great uncle for the first time and his family. I also met a woman who is my Aunt Dot. She's my great aunt on my father's side of the family. And this is a woman I kind of, again, like I said, those cousins you meet that you kind of know, but you don't really know. I've heard the name Aunt Dot before, but I don't know who this person is. And as I was researching my dad's side of the family, I was asking my cousin Alyssa, do you guys have any pictures or anything that you can send? She's not really, but she goes, but ask Aunt Dot. Aunt Dot will help you. I said, great. Who's Aunt Dot and how do I contact Aunt Dot? So she gives me her contact information, and I write this woman a letter. And she's 88 years old, and I cannot explain how it happened or why it happened, but this woman and I became closer than I can possibly tell you in the shortest amount of time. She did not write me back, she called me. So I have this phone number from a New Jersey area code, and I recognize it, and I answer the phone, and it's a sweet little old voice on the other side going, "Hi, Greg." "Hi, who's this?" And we ended up talking. The first time she called me for about an hour on the phone, and she's just telling me all this stuff, and the next thing I know, I'm planning a trip to New Jersey just to visit this woman that I've never met in my life before. And we go there, and I feel like I've known her forever. And it was, again, for me, it's just the weirdest thing, because I have grandparents, literally my grandma and grandfather live 5-10 minutes down the road from us, and we'll see them for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and that might be it. If they're in town for that, they might be out of town. And here's this woman who I'm driving 8 hours to see, who I've never met before, and we are as tight-knit as you could possibly be. So it gets to the point we are talking on the phone probably once every other week and having long conversations, and she just has this way of slowing things down. I was in college at the time, I'm taking organic chemistry, and pretty much every other day feeling like I'm failing at life, and this is never going to end, because organic chemistry, hopefully none of you have ever taken it, but if you have, then I'm sorry, I feel your pain, and it's terrible. But I would call her, and she just had this way of slowing things down and making everything seem like maybe it wasn't so awful, and the whole glass half full philosophy. And she also ended up actually, only 2 years later, she ended up passing away as well. But it was the most amazing thing, and all of this from my great uncle's funeral, which was just like the lowest that we thought we could ever get. I ended up getting one of the most important people I've ever had in my life. So it's one of those things where, again, as I said, at the time you look at it and you think, this is the worst situation. But in retrospect, I've now traced my genealogy back the shortest, like the I guess the least amount of time I have back is the 1600s on any branch, and all the rest of them go beyond that. And I've met family in Germany, my Aunt Dot, all these people that have just completely impacted me and changed me in ways I could never imagine. So I guess it's one of those things, if you're ever going through hell, they say keep going. You don't know what's coming as a result of that. So.